Hey, David Brewster here with an episode of Chordplay, and this is the chords of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And the Chili Peppers formed in Los Angeles in 1983 and have gone on to become one of the most popular and famous, funk rock groups of all time. And definitely, they've kind of had a revolving door, in the beginning with guitarists, and they've had so many guitar changes. It almost reminds me of Spinal Tap with drummers, only it's the Chili Peppers with guitarists. And it started originally with Jack Sherman, and then was followed with Hillel Slovak and John Frusciante, of course. Most people think of John Frusciante as the guitarist in the Chili Peppers. Of course, Dave Navarro joined the group briefly. Josh Klinghoffer. They've had a whole bunch of different players in the band. And they've kind of undergone, some different changes in their sound. But funk is definitely at the heart of the Chili Peppers, of course. And I honestly consider the Chili Peppers a rock group with funk influences. And that might be kind of a controversial, view of the band. Unlike Parliament and Funkadelic, which Funkadelic technically was a funk band with rock influences, and I think the Chili Peppers is kind of the opposite, a rock band with funk influences. But there's definitely a lot you can learn from the Chili Peppers, Funkadelic, James Brown, with Jimmy Nolan. There's a ton of stuff you can learn from funk music. The music in this lesson is actually old Chili Peppers, classic stuff, and we're really not going to move past the 90s, when Dave Navarro was in the band. That's the most recent era of Chili Peppers that's going to be in this lesson, the One Hot Minute, album. But we're going to kind of focus on earlier music and then kind of work our way up to that release. And no offense to the more recent material, but I prefer the early Chili Peppers, the funkier, kind of grittier and raw, sound, and they're kind of mixing, funk and rock and a little bit of punk and all these different elements in their music. Really, really inspiring stuff, though. But the opening, that was Suck My Kiss from Blood Sugar Sex Magik, which I guess I mispronounced that song title. It's Suck My Kiss! Sorry. But there's something interesting you can definitely uncover from this guitar part, and that's very clever, muting with the strings, because you're basically playing around with G minor for that first chord, like that. And it's technically G minor right there, or I guess an implied G minor 7 if you count that first note F, right? So the tricky thing there is there's a B flat in a G minor, and you don't want to play B, which if you look at your strings, you've got an open B string right there. And if you're not careful, you might accidentally play this. And you don't want that. That sounds bad. So you literally have to watch out for that B string to grab that. And what I typically do is use, some of the extra fingers on my picking hand, and I actually lay the fingers on those strings. You can use your third and pinky, or maybe even your middle and third, but silence the B and the high E for that riff. Something like that, just in case. That's like a little insurance, just in case you hit that B string, because you definitely don't want this. You want that. And then right there, he climbs up the single note riff. And I love little riffs and, tags like that. You can hear phrases like that in Rage Against the Machine. There's a ton of bands that have little, kind of double picked and rhythmic single note riffs. I like that little tag in there. Up next is the song Hollywood from Freaky Styley, and this is actually a reworked version of the Meters song Africa. And they changed the song title. They also changed the riff ever so slightly, but here's the Chili Peppers version. And in the Meters, it's slightly different. You know, basically the Chili Peppers were targeting this minor third, that B flat. And then when you hear the Meters version, it's actually brighter because you're targeting B natural, the major third. Like that. And the Chili Peppers twist. So it just makes that riff a little darker, obviously, because it's in a minor key. But there's something really interesting happening with that first chord. And when you see that, when you see me play it, you know, it looks like I'm playing a full G7, right? If you look at the picking hand, it looks like I'm hitting all 6 strings. But I'm technically only hitting 3 strings, or 3 notes of that chord. Low E, the A, and the G. The D, the B, and the high E are all muted. So that way I can strum through it. There we go. And you only hear those 3 notes. Now keep in mind, of course, Flea's playing the bass, there's an organ or something, you know, kind of chiming in on that chord, and the guitar. So that crafty muting there on that G extends up to the B flat and the C that we play after that single note riff. And then just do the same thing with the B flat and C. Up next we have Knock Me Down from Mother's Milk, and it has this Hendrixy kind of push to it, something like this. And there you can see we're basically targeting a D minor 7 as far as the chord. And then you've got that little single note riff. And once again, we're doing some clever, you know, fret hand muting. You know, we're leaving the D string out. So the underside of your middle finger is muting that D string. So that's going to feel like the Hendrix chord, you know, D7 sharp 9. But we're not playing the major third. So you can get rid of the index finger and just mute that D string. Like that. And then do that again. The second time through, you're going to actually slide that double stop on the top of a whole step and back. Something like this. And repeat the first part again. And then just end on an F power chord. Up next is Aeroplane from One Hot Minute. This is Dave Navarro on guitar. And the intro of Aeroplane actually has a series of really interesting chords. Something like this. And then the verse starts. But, you know, the opening chord right here, that's a C7 sus4. And then right here, that's basically a C7 sus2 flat 13. And then you're going to move over to this, that's a B flat, a B flat 7 over C. And then you're going to kind of move down just to, you know, C major. And then you're going to kind of imply the same chord that you had at the beginning. The C7 sus4, and then you're going to move down to the C sus2, and then just bar the 3rd fret across, and that's B flat over C, and then just end on a C5 or a C power chord. But I really like that series of chords. They're kind of spacey and dreamy. Really cool. Alright, the next example is Behind the Sun, which is from the Uplift Mofo Party Plan album, and it has this kind of Hendrixy, bluesy, double stop action, something like this. big fan of those kind of droned, double stop chords and partial chords like that. And in the beginning, you're basically moving between this E and F sharp with an open D. So that's kind of, D major and D sus2 you're flirting with there. And then you're going to basically slide into this, from this B into C sharp with the open A string, and that's going to imply A major and A sus2. And then do the same slide down on the A string, and then shift into basically that G sharp from that F sharp with the low E string open, like that. So you're kind of mimicking the same movement like this. So one more time there, a little slower. Right there after that hammer-on pattern, just play the low E open and an E9 chord, the funk chord, and let that ring. Alright, the last example is the title track from Blood Sugar Sex Magik, and it's a very simple guitar part, but I love the groove and the way the band just kind of hits this opening, riff. It's very simple, it's just power chords, based along the D and the G string, and we're moving, from A up to a B, and then a D up to an E way up there, and then the C to a D, and then G to A. And then do that first part again, and then right there slide, C to D, B to C, and then F sharp to G. And then do all that again. Simple riff, but really cool, and I love that groove too. That's going to wrap this episode of Chordplay with the chords of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And aside from the revolving door of guitarists, Chad Smith's a great drummer. I love Flea. I think Flea is hilarious. He's so energetic and he's so talented. A great, definitely, he is the shining funk member of the Chili Peppers, in my opinion, because he just loves funk and R&B and Motown and soul, and he loves bass, just period. So there's just something about their music and that rhythm section that's always, attracted me. It's just that powerful groove and the funk and the rhythms and everything. And regardless of the guitarist, no offense to any guitarist that's played with the Chili Peppers, they're all important and kind of stylistically a little bit different. But I just like the core, like that funk and just kind of the feel-good, vibe that they have in their music. And they do have some kind of sad, more depressing songs, but a lot of their music's very up and uplifting and very positive. And it just feels good. It's just good music to turn up and dance around and act like a fool. And you can actually learn some really interesting things about funk music and the guitar from studying their music too. So anyway, leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content material. Thank you.